Life tells stories, a tale of trust and resilience. Welcome to Life Tells Stories, where we explore some of the most shocking, inspiring, and moving true life stories. Today we bring you an unforgettable narrative about a mother who faces every parent's worst nightmare. A sudden knock on the door, 3 stern police officers, and a horrifying accusation against her son. Imagine being in her shoes. Your son is under arrest for a $500,000 theft. The words hit like a ton of bricks, and suddenly the world as you know it starts to crumble. Before we dive into this emotional roller coaster, let me ask you this. What would you do if someone you loved was accused of something you knew they would never do? Stick around as we unravel the truth behind this chilling event. Make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the like button to support more incredible stories like this. It was just an ordinary day in the Smith household when everything changed in an instant. Rachel was relaxing on her couch, exhausted but relieved to have some quiet time after a hectic morning. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. A normal occurrence, right? Except this time, instead of a delivery package or a visit from her in-laws, there were 3 large men at the door, police officers. The officers spoke words that made Rachel's blood run cold. "Your son has a warrant out for his arrest." The words tumbled out of the officer's mouth, crashing into her like a tidal wave. Her son, Adam, being accused of something serious. It was unimaginable. Rachel, overwhelmed by panic, tried to shut the door, but the officers wedged their feet in, forcing their way in. The anxiety surged through her like never before. Rachel stood trembling, her voice filled with shock. She pleaded with the officers for an explanation, struggling to comprehend what was happening. They said that Adam had been seen fleeing with cash stolen from a nearby home, and they had witness testimonies to prove it. Despite their confident accusations, Rachel fought back against the claims. She knew her son better than anyone. Adam had always been a bright and well-behaved child, an accomplished student, and an outstanding athlete. There was no way her son could be involved in something so horrible. Rachel stood her ground against the 3 imposing men. Her heart pounded, her mouth was dry, and her body ached with tension. But her determination to protect her son overcame everything else. "Please wait outside while I collect myself," she demanded, grasping for time to understand the absurdity of the moment. Rachel closed herself off for a moment, locking the door with the officers outside, giving herself a moment to breathe and gather her thoughts. She had no idea what to do next. Fear, confusion, and anger whirled inside her head. She thought about her life with her husband and Adam, how they lived peacefully, how proud they were of their son, who had won numerous awards in soccer. Adam was the heart of their home, and there was nothing in his behavior to ever suggest he would commit a crime, let alone steal $500,000. She knew deep down that her son couldn't possibly be guilty of what the police were claiming. It had to be a mistake. She repeated to herself, Adam would never do this. The love for her son gave her the strength she needed to keep pushing back. The officers were relentless. With growing frustration, they demanded entry, and when Rachel hesitated, they forced their way into the house. The door burst open, and Rachel fell to the ground as the 3 men walked past her. Their eyes zeroed in on Adam's room, recognizing it from the nameplate on the door. Rachel shouted desperately, pleading with them not to invade her son's privacy, but her cries fell on deaf ears. As the officers marched toward Adam's door, Rachel's world seemed to slow down. She couldn't believe that her ordinary life had devolved into this chaotic nightmare. The officers shouted for Adam to come out, claiming they just wanted to talk. Then, something happened that none of them expected. Adam himself responded from inside the room, his voice calm and steady. "I'm here," he said, opening the door. The officers stepped inside to see Adam lying in a specialized nursing bed, a wheelchair next to him, and medical supplies scattered around. Adam was bedridden. Rachel watched the officers' faces turn from suspicion to shock. As you can see, Adam said calmly, "I can't walk or run anywhere, let alone steal anything." The officers stood there, dumbfounded. Rachel couldn't help but feel a sense of vindication. Her son was telling the truth, and they had no grounds to accuse him of a crime he could not possibly commit. But her relief quickly turned into a new emotion: anger. One of the officers stepped closer, and Adam suddenly looked at him with recognition. "Steve, is that you?" he asked, his voice breaking the tension in the room. Steve, the officer, froze. Rachel suddenly realized that one of the officers was none other than Adam's childhood friend, Steve. They had been the best of friends, playing soccer together until Steve's family moved away. Now Steve looked nothing like the confident boy she remembered. His face was gaunt, and his eyes were filled with a sadness that Rachel recognized immediately. Steve's demeanor changed as he lowered his gaze, unable to meet Adam's eyes. The other two officers began to fidget, sensing the growing tension between Steve and the family. Rachel's suspicions deepened. Something wasn't right. She noticed that the uniforms looked slightly off, like costumes, and that the supposed officers lacked the professional demeanor she expected. Her instincts kicked in. These men weren't real officers. As Rachel pieced things together, Steve spoke up. He admitted that the officers weren't who they claimed to be. They were pretending to be police, targeting wealthy families to extort money by falsely accusing their children. The warrant, the uniforms, everything had been fabricated to intimidate and manipulate the Smith family. Steve, struggling with guilt, revealed the full plan. He confessed that he had become desperate to pay off his family's debts and had agreed to help the fake officers by identifying wealthy targets. He didn't realize that he would be targeting his childhood best friend. A heated confrontation erupted between Steve and the other imposters. Steve declared that he was done with their scheme and wanted out, but his accomplices were enraged. One of the men lunged at Steve, knocking him to the ground. Rachel screamed, but before things could get worse, a voice rang out from the doorway. "Hold it right there." A real police officer stood at the entrance, his badge glinting in the sunlight. Rachel had called the authorities while locked in the bathroom earlier, and they had arrived just in time. The fake officers were quickly apprehended, while Steve remained on the floor, tears streaming down his face. Rachel watched in silence as Steve was also led away by the police, his eyes filled with regret. At this point, I'd love for you, our viewers, to share your thoughts in the comments section. How do you think you would react in such a situation? Would you have trusted your instincts like Rachel did? Let us know below. After the chaos settled, Rachel and Adam began to clean up the mess left behind. The news about Steve and his accomplices spread, and the family soon learned more about their story. Steve had tried to work his way out of debt, but as things spiraled out of control, he made desperate choices that led him down the wrong path. Steve had only joined the scheme to alleviate his family's financial crisis. The group had successfully extorted money from several other families by creating false accusations and intimidating parents. But this time, it had gone too far. Steve couldn't betray his friend, even if it meant facing severe consequences. Despite everything, Adam couldn't bring himself to hate Steve. He understood the desperation Steve must have felt. Instead, Adam remained hopeful for his friend's redemption, knowing that deep down, Steve was still the person he had once played soccer with on those carefree afternoons. Life slowly began returning to normal. Rachel and Adam kept in touch with Steve after his arrest, writing letters back and forth. Adam believed that Steve could turn his life around, and he encouraged his friend to stay strong. Meanwhile, Adam was determined to look toward the future. Despite his physical limitations, he decided to take up power chair soccer, a sport that gave him new purpose and motivation. Every morning, Rachel would bring him breakfast, and they'd talk about his progress, his plans, and Steve's letters. One day, Adam received a letter from Steve. It was filled with hope. Steve promised that once he was free, he would join Adam for a game of soccer, no matter the circumstances. This promise became a beacon of life for Adam, something to look forward to, despite all that had happened. Rachel watched her son with admiration. Adam's spirit remained unbroken, and his resilience inspired her to face her own challenges head-on. No matter what life threw at them, they would face it together. This story shows us how quickly life can change in an instant and how important it is to trust our instincts. Rachel never gave up on her son, and Adam never gave up on his friend, even when the odds were stacked against them. The power of resilience, love, and forgiveness shines through even in the darkest moments. We can all learn something from this story: to believe in the people we love, to trust our instincts, and to have hope even when things seem impossible. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more incredible tales that reveal the depth of human experience, make sure to subscribe to Life Tells Stories. Hit the like button and share this video with your friends. It helps us continue bringing these impactful stories to you. Until next time, stay safe, stay hopeful, and remember to always trust in the ones you love. Goodbye.